I am 25, want to break an unhealthy cycle of fighting with my F27 GF. To start things off, I want to take accountability. I screamed, I got angry, I said hurtful things last night. I walked out of the house after screaming. I would rather sleep on the street and choose peace than allow you to escalate me to war. I also said, I bet when EXBF she had a narcissistic ex she escaped before me who she cheated on with a boy best friend. Mind you said all those nasty things you got of him on recording, that you instigated him like this until you got that reaction out of him so you could get on recording when he finally snaps. Because of you poking and provoking just like you're doing me right now. Now that the nasty shit is out of the way, here is the start of the story. I went out to work last night. I am a self-employed contractor, so my schedule is whenever I can land a client. Since I am still starting out, I went to work at 2:30 p.m. and was not home until 11. I told her to eat without me, because I realized the job was gonna take forever. I didn't know exactly how long, and I still underestimated the length of time. But nevertheless, outside of that brief explanation of, go on ahead and eat without me, I did not clarify how late I was going to be. When I came home she was asleep and I put some food in the oven, and when she heard me and began to wake, I came over to be loving and tell her how much I missed her and ask if she was hungry too. She acted normal for a bit but then started getting passive-aggressive and making grunts and groans as I was eating for the first time since 9 a.m. that morning after 10 hours of hard manual labor. Moving a 3-bedroom house into a storage unit. I was eating my first slice of pizza when she made an even louder groan. I finally lost my patience after trying to be sweet during that time and said, "What? Clearly you are being passive-aggressive. What is it that I did? Because clearly you are upset." She told me about how I didn't communicate well with her and that she was mad she chose not to eat anyway because she was waiting on me, and by the time I got home it was too late for her to be eating. Anyway, I said, "It's okay baby, I made this pizza to share," and she said, "I don't even like that one." So I said, "Well, let me run and get you something else." And she circled back to how it was too late. I apologized and accepted accountability for my lack of communication with her on the time it was going to take, even though I did text her to eat without me and she continued to be angry. I realized that empathy wasn't going to work, and that finding a solution also wasn't going to work. This is a habit of hers where even when I listen to the relationship advice of validate her feelings and take accountability for your faults, she still chooses to stay upset and there is no way to rectify things. Eventually I roll over and give up because I realize the more I try to make her happy, the more I am starting to get angry because it's clear there is no resolution because she actively won't allow there to be one, and she goes back to the grunts and groans and mumbling shit under her breath for a good 30 to 45 minutes as I am actively biting my tongue to not get heated and just laying in the bed in silence. I am bipolar, and when I do snap I get loud, mean, and very much scorched earth. But I only ever reach that point when I feel backed into a corner like there's no way forward. She knows this. She continued to poke and prod until I did snap and get ugly. I still ended up coming home and apologizing after walking off and saying what I said about choosing peace over war because she blew up my phone and tried to get me to come back. When I came back we were full on yelling at that point, but she was able to make it clear to me that it wasn't because I showed empathy and wanted to rectify things that she was angry, but because I got defensive with saying, "What?" First with her initial passive aggressiveness in the beginning, and that it doesn't matter if I apologize or try to rectify things because she's mad I didn't respond the right way at first. This zero-sum game mentality she has with me in every fight, where I do everything to actively listen, apologize, and follow up with resolution, makes me feel powerless, hopeless, and eventually makes me snap out of self-preservation. I need advice on how to break this unhealthy cycle, because we both love each other but we can seriously bring out the worst in each other sometimes. I love her very much. I regret the things I say and do every time I snap, but she knows how I am and still chooses every time to instigate me and make me mad on purpose just because she is. Dad showed favoritism toward me 33M versus my brother 32M as kids, still affects our relationships as adults. From a very young age, my dad invested more in me. He sent me one of the best high schools for my sport. I got a partial college scholarship, played 3 years pro, blew my knee to shit, took what I earned, had a more than decent start in life and transitioned into a PhD program. I'm in consulting now. My brother was exactly a year younger than me, and while we were in a good public school district, there was seemingly a $40,000 benefit to attending the high school I went to. Very unfair. He went through K-12 in public school. Was an incredibly gifted musician. He could not get the time of day from our dad. He's a music teacher, master teacher. My father initially wouldn't help him with college but offered half if he majored in something else. Whereas Dad paid for whatever my athletic scholarship didn't cover. I was not in a headcount sport, so the difference was quite a bit for me. Brother took out loans. Once I was in my freshman year of college and he told me that Dad said he wouldn't help him. I expressed my disapproval to my father. I sent him an email and wrote him letters expressing my disapproval of this, etc. Dad said he wasn't paying for a music degree. I asked Dad if he would pay if brother majored in something else. He said half. I told my brother to consider something else because a half paid for degree is better than nothing, plus he would likely get something from the colleges. That was sort of where our fallout began. He made a comment about Dad not being able to help him more because he put all his money into me. He was 17, senior in high school. He ended up sticking to his guns with music and got the loans to cover the difference of his tuition. He met and married his now ex-wife. They had 2 daughters, now 6 and 5. Today, we don't talk very much. We see each other at family gatherings and we just both nod at each other. If he stays, sometimes he will just drop the kids off. The kids will play together. I see my nieces more on the weekends their mom has them versus when my brother has them on the weekends. My wife and I have 4 girls, 10, 7, 6 and 4. It's not every weekend, but we try to make sure that these cousins have a relationship. They also FaceTime a lot. For if we're taking our girls to see a movie, we'll always extend the invite to whoever has my brother's daughters, be it him or his ex-wife. If they're with my brother, he'll usually just say, "Noted," not follow up or get someone else to bring them to me. When they were together, his wife always brought them. This last weekend, brother's ex-wife brought them to our house because my 6-year niece was asking. I said we're home, we're here, sure you can bring them. She didn't clear it with him and he found out they were at my house. He texted me and said, "Are you and Ella, his ex-wife, best friends now or something?" He went to bring something that the girls forgot to their mom's house and when he saw they weren't there, that's how he found out. I don't want to be involved in that obviously. I think their dad should know where they are but these girls were just watching the original Incredibles and eating tacos. Nothing wild, lol. I was a little confused as to why this was an issue now. He knows they come here sometimes and sometimes our kids go to their cousin's mom's house. He got very angry and told his daughters to get their stuff because they're leaving. We said goodbye to the girls and we'd see them later. Wife got angry at me that I let him leave and to me it's just like what would you have had me do? I can't tell the man he can't take his children wherever he bloody well wants to. She thinks I should invite him over for a beer or something, but these issues are deep. It's not going to be fixed over a beer and a laugh. He's unhappy and Dad is the reason for his unhappiness. Dad is dead. It's not like he can confront him. I called my mom to get her opinion on it and as soon as I started to explain the issue, she immediately gets stressed and says, "Oh my sweet boys. God rest his soul but I always told your father this would happen." Which is something she always says whenever the issue of the unfair treatment comes up. My brother is quite close to my mom and understandably so. She went to bat for him a lot growing up and took my father on about this very issue often. There were a lot of blow-ups between he and my mom that often ended with my dad not hearing my mom. She didn't have a lot to say in the way of advice either because she's tried for years to mediate this conflict. She says she prays for us and about it a lot. I do think my dad was massively unfair to my brother and his lack of attention to him quite likely altered the course of his life. I didn't really notice it until college when he told me Dad wasn't paying for him, which is why I sent letters to express my disapproval of that. It was wrong and shitty. He was just 17 and signing himself on the hook for a massive amount of debt. Just doing some rough numbers, between sports, my high school education and college, my dad has invested nearly $300,000 in sports education for me. And he offered to pay for just half of my brother's college, which was in-state, only under the condition that he major in something Dad approved of. No one has to pay for anything but this was seriously uneven and I get why he's angry but attempts to talk in our early 20s have not gone well, so we've mostly avoided each other where we can. I think my wife's heart is in the right place and she continues to tell me this has gone on long enough but I don't know how you solve this kind of long-standing, deep-rooted issue when the person who created it is dead. I've acknowledged to my brother that Dad did not do enough to help him and showed him the emails, letters I sent him practically begging Dad to help pay for his college. I've gotten responses here about being the golden child, scapegoat dynamic, which I agree with. A lot of things happened that shouldn't happened and if Dad was here, I think he'd need to hear that. I love my brother and I hate that we are in this position of being near strangers. Someone suggested that I was wrong for suggesting he major in something else, but my initial emails were begging Dad to change his mind and pay for his college. When Dad said that was his condition, I told him maybe he should consider another major for the sake of financial soundness. Never thought that that would be a relationship-ending comment. I do think it's promising that he still lets his kids play with mine. What is the difference between being a pushover and being a kind, generous person? I tend to be the kind of person who drops everything to help people around me, even if they aren't exactly on my good side. I genuinely do not know if I am a pushover, or just a kind person like I would really like to be. Don't get me wrong, I don't want this to come off as me saying I'm a perfect person or better than anyone or a humble brag or anything. I have a million flaws and am probably a shit person lol. But, for example, I have an ex that I met in high school that broke up with me about 4 months ago, after dating for 3 years. She ended up in a shit situation living with her family after she had to move out of my house for the entire relationship. I paid 100% of everything. Did all of the errands, did all of the driving, planned all of the dates, and did half the cleaning. Due to her parents being drug addicts, we were forced to move in together way too fast. She neither worked, nor went to school because she just flat out stopped going to high school about a year into the relationship. It ended up being her plus 3 other adults plus 7 kids plus a newborn in a 2-bedroom apartment. This caused her to have a mental breakdown for like 3 weeks in a row. Not sure, but it was around there. At the time, despite still grieving, I let her take my couch so she wouldn't be in such a bad situation. Since then, she's been nothing but rude to me, even when I'm doing a favor for her. Like the other day, she said to buy a mop. I said to go to the store with me, because I know she'll say whatever I got was wrong. She said no. I went, got a mop. She then started a screaming match that it was the wrong mop. Despite that, I've still taken time off of work to drive her to and from doctor's appointments, bring her places she needs to go, loaned her money. Helped her make a good resume which she still hasn't even bothered to use, and even though she's there 24/7 I still do half the cleaning. For another example, this is when I was dating my ex. I was bringing her back to her family's home an hour away. I'd then have to drive myself an hour back. It wasn't uncommon to have to do this 2 times a day, a few days a week. But, as I was backing out, my rear axle's rotor I think. I'm not a car person. This was like 6 months ago. Broke and made a loud bang. I made sure I hadn't backed into anyone, and I wasn't even close. A solid foot away, and an important note, I have a front and rear dash cam. So, I kept driving since I didn't hit anyone. About 15 minutes into the drive I thought, I don't want someone to think I hit and ran a car, so I called the person who was crashing on my couch at that time. I told him in no uncertain terms that I did not hit a car, but to let me know if anyone starts looking at the car I was close to, and I'll explain the situation and show them the dashcam footage. Well, him and my 2 paying roommates decided to tell the neighbor that I backed into their car and drove away. The wrong neighbor. They call the cops and report me for a hit and run. My roommates give me one quick call. Get back here before you get a felony hit and run, and hang up. I call back 26 times and they don't answer. I turn around. I get there later. Blah blah. They convince me to just take responsibility so we don't have beef with the neighbors. I do so, and the neighbors don't file a report with the cops. Hindsight 2020. I had the dashcam. Neighbors want $500 for repairs. My roommates agree for me. When we get back inside, I tell them that they are paying it, not me. They agree, and I go to my room. All three of them spend the next couple hours talking all kinds of shit about me, thinking I can't hear, in my own home. One of them is living there for free as a favor, and the other two have a room at literally 30% of the market cost of apartments. I confront them about a week later, and get one apology from one of my roommates saying, "I'm sorry, I was just hoping you didn't hear, so I never apologized before you said anything." The other never apologize, and the one crashing on my couch refuses to. I kick him out. I was very upset by this for a very long time. That was always my biggest fear. What if my friends didn't like me and they are just lying and talking shit about me? But my at the time girlfriend, knowing how upset, hurt, and betrayed I feel, continues to be the best of friends with them, even to the point of not hanging out with me. Yet, despite all of that, I still have them weeks of extra time on bills. I still loaned them money. I still didn't make a penny of profit off of them. I was still always there to help them no matter what they needed. I have a few more stories, but these are the big ones. Am I just being a kind, forgiving, and generous person despite my flaws? Or am I being a total pushover? I have a medical condition that may not have an answer or a cure, but I cannot stop thinking about it. Couple years ago I found out that I have a rare form of male factor infertility. Specifically, my sperm have a high percentage of DNA fragmentation. Meaning that although my body can make sperm, either my body isn't replicating my genetic code during meiosis properly, or when it does completely meiosis the cells are being damaged somehow. Either way, in the odds that my wife and I could possibly conceive naturally are vanishingly small. Then, even in the case that natural conception happens, the odds that the baby would be carried to term, let alone healthy, are even lower because a zygote can only do so much self-repi with a damaged sperm cell. I've always wanted to be a father, so needless to say, when this diagnosis came, I fell into despair. Possibly the deepest despair I had ever felt. Eventually, my wife and I conceived via IVF using donor sperm. I am honestly over the moon excited to have our first child. But the IVF process is difficult and costly. So, my mind frequently returns to, if only I could give our kid a little brother or sister naturally. With IVF we might have to wait years before a second transfer, and even then IVF does guarantee a baby. But if we could conceive naturally, there's no constraints about finances for affording the shots, or checking uterine lining, or hormone levels. The soonest we could have a second baby is as soon as she begins to ovulate again and when sex is comfortable for her again. But natural isn't an option. Because of me. Because my body refuses to do something that nearly every man in the history of the world has been able to do. I don't treat my body like shit. I could lose some weight. I've never done hard drugs, or smoked, or had repeated blows to my crotch. And yet here I am with a rare form that has no specific cure, because why research a rare form, right? What money is there to be made by the medical establishment by helping natural conception? And any research is open-ended on the efficacy of how to address it. Take some antioxidants and see how that goes. It could make things worse though. I feel my wife's baby, and I don't care that I didn't help put that baby there other than working overtime for years. I just wish that she didn't have to go through the shots, and would never have to go through them again. I wish we could be surprised by our next kid,